So it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to get started if that works for everyone. Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Court Reporters Board. I have a few housekeeping matters to share before I call the meeting to order, beginning with a reminder to everyone that this meeting is being recorded and webcast. Today's meeting will be run in accordance with the Open Meeting Act as required by law. I would ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. You may notice board members accessing their laptops, phones, and other devices during the meeting. They are using the devices solely to access board meeting materials that are in electronic format. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. To better assist the board in accurately transcribing minutes of the meeting, members of the public who make a comment may be asked to disclose their name and association. However, disclosure of that information is not required by law and is purely voluntary. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you agree with the prior speaker, please do not repeat the comments, but rather state that you agree with comments already made. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Bruning please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Hurt?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Chugade?
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Present.
Quorum reached.
Thank you. I would like to welcome our new licensee board member, Laura Brewer. Ms. Brewer has been a court reporter since 1981, working as a freelance deposition reporter, a conference reporter, and a communication access real-time translation captioner since 1982. She is a member of the National Court Reporters Association, the Deposition Reporters Association of California, and Intersteno. She has been recognized as a fellow of the Academy of Professional Reporters through NCRA and holds the highest levels of certification available. She has served on committees and other volunteer roles in all 3 of those associations and has successfully completed in steno competitions sponsored by each association. Ms. Brewer, I look forward to working with you. Welcome to the board. Before we begin, I would like to remind the board members that we will be taking roll call vote on all action items. Our first agenda item is number 1, public comments for items not on the agenda. Before we invite speakers to begin, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for a decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications as they could provide information to the board members that is outside of the record, which is in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Therefore, such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. The board can receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. Board staff is available to speak with you about any pending matter. In addition, the board would ask that the public address the board as a whole and not individual board members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members and is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. No other action can be taken on the item at this meeting. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. With that, is there anyone wishing to offer public comment?
We are now open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box, which should have appeared in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send it to all participants. For our call-in users, or alternately for our device users, you may raise your hand. We will take comments in the order that they are received. And now let us take a moment to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, would you like to close comments for items not on the agenda?
Yes, please. Our next agenda item is approval of the August 20, 2021 meeting minutes. Are there any other additions or corrections to the minutes from the board members?
Chair, I'd like to move approval.
Do we have a second?
Denise Tagade will second.
We have a second by Denise. We have a motion by Ms. Hurt. We have a second by Ms. Tagade. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
We are again open for public comment for comments on the meeting minutes. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box, which should have appeared in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send it to all participants. Alternately, you can raise your hand. If you are on a mobile device, the command is *3. And we have a request for comment from Anna. Hold on just a moment, and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
We are able to hear you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. With regard to item number 4.5 of exam update, I state
This is for
for the minutes
okay.
from the last meeting. 4.5 exam update. It's page 4.
Yes.
It states, I want to clarify that what I said at the end of that paragraph it's paragraph number 2. Ms. Costa stated that she has received several complaints about the online test platform and requested an audit of the test provider. I want to make it clear that I mean an audit of the Corey Porter's Board's testing processes as well as real-time coach and proctor you.
Could you restate that? I'm sorry.
Sure.
What I understand exactly where you're talking about in the minutes. It's what you said you meant anyway.
Yes. What I meant was an audit of the entire testing process, starting from a candidate's or a core reporter's application to take the exam all the way through to completion. Through the Core Reporters Board, RTC, and proctoring you, all of it. not only the test provider. It's unclear what is meant by that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the public on the minutes?
It does not appear that we have any more comments on the minutes. We have a question which I will be answering in text.
Thank you. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll to vote on this item?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Brewer?
Pardon me, this is board counsel. I just wanted to check if there, okay, I just was trying to check if there was an issue with revision to the minutes based on what was said versus what, yeah, okay, you heard it. I guess I'll withdraw my comment. Thanks.
Just for clarification, the way I took that is Ms. Fatima was just clarifying what her intent was by her comments. So I did not take that as a problem with the minutes, but just a clarification of what she was saying at the time. So
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, thanks.
oh, thank you.
And Chair, as the mover of this motion, I'd like to keep the minutes as is, and I appreciate the public comment explaining more about what has been listed in the minutes.
Thank you. And I echo your comments. Thank you for the clarification and the information. So we've got a motion to approve the minutes, and I apologize if somebody seconded, I lost it. I missed it. Do we have a second?
Yes, Ms. Tugade. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Ms. Hurt and a second by Ms. Tagade to approve the minutes. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll on the vote?
Thank you. Ms. Brewer?
Abstain.
Thank you. Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Tugade?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Sunkis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Turning to the next agenda item, which is number 3, which is consideration of a resolution for outgoing board member Tony O'Neill. I will read the proposed resolution and then take comment from the board members and the public. Department of Consumer Affairs, Court Reporters Board of California Resolution. There you are. Good morning, Tony. Whereas Tony O'Neill has faithfully and devotedly served as a member of the Court Reporters Board from August 7, 2010 through November 17, 2021. And whereas she served as chair from October 15, 2010 to June 26, 2015, and as vice chair from July 19, 2018 to August 20, 2021. And she served as co-chair and member of the Online Testing Policy and Procedures Task Force, co-chair and member of the License Reciprocity Task Force, co-chair and member of the Best Practice Pointers Task Force, and member of the Sunset Review Task Force. And whereas throughout her years of service, at all times Tony O'Neill gave faithfully of herself and her ideas and acted forthrightly and conscientiously, always with the public interest and welfare in mind. And whereas Tony O'Neill has more than 40 years of professional experience as a certified shorthand reporter, having served the community as a deposition reporting agency owner, and then as a court reporting official in Riverside County, having positively impacted courthouse proceedings by promoting the use of real-time technologies, And whereas she has served in many leadership and supportive roles in industry associations and serving on the board of directors of the National Court Reporters Association and serving as president and vice president of the California Court Reporters Association, including receiving their Distinguished Service Award in 2007. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Court Reporters Board express heartfelt appreciation to Toni O'Neill for the outstanding contribution she made during her years of service on the Court Reporters Board and to the consumers of California. Presented this 26th day of January, 2022. I first met Toni in 1998 as a new board member of CCRA. I believe Toni was president-elect at that time. I have always had the utmost respect for Toni's opinion and appreciation for her years of work with CCRA and NCRA to grow and support the profession of court reporting. I was very pleased that you were on the board, Toni, when I was appointed in 2019 on this board. It has truly been a pleasure to work with you. The board and the consumers of California have benefited greatly from your contributions. Would any board member like to comment on the proposed resolution? Ms. Hurt.
Thank you, Chair. Toni, you have been a great advocate for California consumers. I am so thankful to have met you. Your grace, your thoughtfulness, very welcoming to the board. You've been a very important voice, I believe, on this board with so many years of service and being a certified shorthand reporter. It has been invaluable. And I'm going to miss our lunches and our dinners. So I hope to see you soon, but your extensive knowledge has been such a benefit for all of us. And you've worked hard for this profession. We're going to miss you. You're going to be very much missed. Thank you. Thank you again for all the work that you've done on the board and being a great colleague.
Any other board members that would like to make a comment? Ms. Fenner?
I think that Laura and Denise both had their hands up. I'm not sure if you can see it on your end.
I cannot. As a matter of fact, I was looking, okay.
Laura
I
was first.
apologize. Now I can, okay. I apologize. Ms. Tagade.
Oh, sure, no problem. And you know, Toni, our service on the board together was very brief, but it was clear even from that short time how knowledgeable you are, how much of a leader you have been, and you'll clearly leave this lasting imprint on the board. And I know we all feel that we have big shoes to fill. So thank you and congratulations on all of your service.
Thank you. Ms. Brewer.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me. Toni, I think we met on the Legislative Council of CCRA back in the mid-90s, and you were a star then and did a fantastic job representing reporters and disseminating information. And for all these years that you have served the public, as a licensee, I cannot express how grateful I am to you for all that you have given, and taking over the rest of your term. I certainly have very large shoes to fill. Thank you so much. And good luck to you now with a little more time on your hands.
Ms. Fenner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Toni, I don't even know where to start. We were both appointed as board members to the Court Reporters Board under the Schwarzenegger administration, and we served together as board members until I became the executive officer, where instead of formulating policy, I transitioned to the role of carrying it out on the board's behalf. Tony has been such an involved board member. She's tackled everything from firm registration to sunset review to license reciprocity. No issue was too tough for her to weigh in and take it on. She's always been available to staff, freely sharing her expertise so that we could do our very best. Her calm professionalism will be sorely missed, and I consider it one of the honors of my career to have served with her in protecting the consumers of California. Tony, best wishes for wild success in the next portion of your life's adventure. Good luck.
Do we have any member of the public who would like to make a comment about the proposed resolution?
We are now taking public comments on the proposed resolution. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box and send your comment to all participants. Alternately, you can raise your hand. For those on mobile devices, please dial *3. And we have a hand raised. We'll address that in just a moment. Bear with us. Carolyn, you have been sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Hi, this is Carolyn Dasher. I just wanted to say I thought it was very well worded and just thank Tony. I have known Tony for many, many years, and I just want to thank her for her service, and I hope she has a wonderful retirement. That means, and thank you so much for honoring her. That's all. Thank you.
All right, let us take just a moment to see if we have additional requests for comment. Seeing no additional requests for comment, would you like to close comments at this time?
Yes, please. I want to thank you all for your input. And we have before us a proposed resolution. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
Was that, I didn't see, was that Ms. Brewer that moved the motion?
Laura
Thank
moved.
you. Okay. So we've got a motion to adopt the resolution made by Ms. Brewer, and it was seconded by Ms. Hurt. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Ms. Hurt,
Aye.
Ms. Chugare,
Aye.
Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4. I would like to welcome Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director Deputy Director, Board and Bureau Relations from the Department of Consumer Affairs, who will be presenting the board with an update. Ms. Holmes?
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Sunkis, members, and Executive Officer Yvonne Fenner. A warm welcome to new member Laura Brewer. Thank you so much for your willingness to serve. And thank you to Tony O'Neill for your dedication to the board and California's consumers. DCA appreciates all board members and staff who have continued to serve through a pandemic that has affected all of us in many ways. To combat the spread of COVID-19 and protect vulnerable communities, California has implemented enhanced safety measures. State employees must show proof of vaccination or be subject to regular COVID-19 testing. The California Department of Public Health is requiring masks to be worn in all indoor public settings until February 2022, regardless of vaccination status. DCA's testing program kicked off in early October at DCA headquarters and has expanded to additional sites and home testing. We are working together to find the right balance of staying connected and productive while keeping safe and healthy. DCA and all its boards and bureaus continue to look to the future and use lessons learned to identify long-term efficiencies and policy changes. Staff are working in the office to provide the most effective consumer protection and customer service while also utilizing telework where appropriate. DCA recognizes the difficulty of planning for future meetings as the pandemic continues to evolve. On January 5th, Governor Newsom signed an executive order that extends the sunset date set in AB 361. Under this new order, boards are permitted to continue holding public meetings via WebEx without listing board member locations through March 31st, 2022. Additionally, Sacramento County issued a local order on January 6th directing public boards, committees, and similar public bodies to suspend any in-person meetings that might otherwise be held within the county and hold them remotely. After March 31st, we expect that meetings will resume in person in accordance with all aspects of the Open Meetings Act. Before attending an in-person board meeting, members must verify full vaccination with DCA's Office of Human Resources or participate in COVID-19 testing. DCA requests that all members submit their vaccination verification by January 31st to allow enough time to plan for COVID-19 testing for those who will need it. I want to express my appreciation for the flexibility of board members and staff. We don't know what additional changes to the law may be coming, and we will keep you updated. As a reminder, board members have training and paperwork requirements. Each year, board members are required by law to fill out file a Form 700 before April 1st or face penalties from the FPPC. DCA requests that you file by March 18th. If any board members need assistance, DCA's filing officer and legal counsel are available to help. Board members who are recently appointed need to attend Board Member Orientation Training, or BMOT, within a year of that appointment date. You can register for BMOT through the Learning Management System, or LMS, which is DCA's training portal. Live virtual trainings will be held March 9th, June 15th, and October 12th. This is a required training for newly appointed and reappointed members, but we also encourage it for any member who would like a refresher. Board and Bureau Relations is happy to assist you with any questions or using the LMS. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help. If there's anything we can do, please reach out. This concludes my presentation, and I'll hand it back over to Chair Sunkis.
Thank you so much, Ms. Holmes, for the information and for being with us this morning. Our next agenda item is number 5, the report from our executive officer. Ms. Fenner, what do you have for us this morning?
Thank you, Chair Sunkis. I'm going to start off my report with a review of the budget. If everyone wants to take a look at page 25 of the board meeting materials, you'll see the final numbers for our last fiscal year, which was 2020-2021. And you can see at the end of the year, we were able to revert just over 19% of our budget back to the main court reporters fund. For those that follow our budget, this is substantial, as we typically run very close to the break-even point. So that was really exciting news for us. And I'm happy to take any questions on last year's budget. Ms. Hurt?
Thank you. I actually don't have a question. I just have a comment. I just want to bring the board's attention to how disciplined we've been over the years after that kind of budgeting miscalculation some years ago, and how well we've worked back to putting the board back right side, I guess you would say, with no on-site testing and actually having the online testing. If you look at our budget, that's made a huge difference. So I just want to applaud the board for being really disciplined and getting our budget back where it needs to be. And also staff, obviously, they've done a lot of the work. And I know we're kind of running lean. And now as I speak, a question I do have, Ms. Finner, is do we need more in-house support? Looking at this budget, is there a possibility to get more folks for you?
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to my staff, because we have been running largely without a office technician or receptionist half-time position for support for us. That position was vacant for quite some time, and then we've had a couple of candidates come in and fill it, but they were short-lived. And so staff has picked up so many of those duties, and I really appreciate how they just jumped in and did it, if you will. We also lost the half-time staff service analyst who worked on the pro per portion of the transcript reimbursement fund. So that entire fund, the processing of all of those claims has landed with Miss Bruning. And it's amazing to me how much all the staff just pitches in and does what they need to do. So with the thanks being said, I'd like to give them a little light at the end of the tunnel. We do have a new office technician lined up to be hired. We're in the final processes, hopefully being able to get her on in the next few weeks. That should take care of part of the portion or part of the workload. Then once she's onboarded, we can see how much she can take when we know her skill level a little bit better. We can see how much of the workload can be transitioned over to her, and then we'll evaluate once she's in and settled, and then see where we can add staff if we need to further, particularly the goals in the strategic plan.
Thank you. I guess the one other question I have is, I know on our strategic plan, we've talked a lot about cross-training because folks are so valuable and there's so many jobs that need to be done and we're a small team. I guess in context to onboarding a new person, just wondering how that process is going.
Well, she hasn't actually been hired yet, so we're a step before that. Yeah, everybody else is, the desks are cross-trained, so we should be fine. Bringing her on, we'll have to see, as I said, her skill level and her interests, so we can obviously train her as much as we can so that we have additional backup.
Got it. Thank you.
Were there any other questions? If not, I'm going to move us to page 26, which is our current expenditure projections. This is as of fiscal month 5, so we're not quite halfway through the fiscal year. As of right now, we still have a healthy reversion of just over 14% projected, but we will have the expense of that new OT position being filled. Are there specific questions on the current expenditure projections? If seeing none, if we go to page 27, you'll see the overall fund condition. So this is our savings account, if you will. This shows the overall health of fiscally of the board. If you go down to the months in reserve, you can see that that's a nice stable number, 8, 9 months in reserve. That's important for us because if we drop less than 6 months of operating expenses, then we're unable to fund the transcript reimbursement fund. So does anyone have any questions on the overall fund condition? If not, then I am going to, as we look at the overall fund condition for the transcript reimbursement fund, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bruning to give a report on the TRF.
Thank you, Ms. Spinner. Just giving a little bit of reflective information. The TRF reopened in November of 2020, so it wasn't a full fiscal year that we administered that for that time period. However, we still allocated $114,000 during that fiscal year. That was 2021. So far this fiscal year, as she reported, we're a little more than halfway through. We have allocated over $70,000. So that's more than half of what was spent overall for that partial fiscal year of last year. To be specific, we have paid out $46,000 plus for the pro bono portion. We have 14 apps pending on that. And for the pro per portion, we have provisionally approved over 13,000 and paid out over 13,000 with 36 applications currently pending. Half of those, however, have already been reviewed and are deficient, so I'm following up on that. The big news, however, is that the legislature allocated an additional $500,000 and has dedicated that to the transcript reimbursement fund. So we'll be able to help many more people to come in the next few years. I invite any questions or comments.
I'm not seeing any from the board. I think we're going to take them as a whole. Oh, I apologize, Ms. Hurt.
Sorry, I was slow to hitting that button there. I just want to thank all the legislators and the folks in the governor's office for this $500,000 to the fund. It's really important for our consumers and pro bono folks, and so I just want to definitely thank them.
I would just add my thanks to Ms. Bruning for her hard work in keeping up with the claims as well as pitching in on everything else. If there are no more questions budget-wise, I would turn the board's attention to pages 29 and 30 of the board agenda packet, where you'll see the statistics for the period of July 1st, 2021 through December 1st, 2021. As the board may remember, the two most common complaints that we receive are accuracy of the transcript and timeliness of production. And those still remain the two most common complaints that we receive. There's no new trends, if you will. Sometimes there's a practice in the industry that is shady and we'll get a bunch of complaints about that. We have nothing like that to report to the board on right now. And there's nothing unusual in the number of complaints that we've been receiving. So I would ask if the board members have any specific questions on the enforcement report. I'd be happy to answer. So seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and turn to the license exam statistics. They begin on page 31 of the board agenda packet with the results for the skills portion. I would point out that March of 2020 was the last time that we did an on-site skills test, and that since that time, the pass rates seem to have stabilized since moving to the remote platform. I would ask you please not to ask me why that is. All of the tests go through the same development process. They're carefully counted out by word and syllable. And I really have no reason to offer you for why we had such wild prior fluctuations or why it's currently stabilized. But I'd be happy to answer any questions specific to the skills exam. If there are none, then I would just point out that the written portion, there are two portions that are written, the English and the professional practice. The English exam results are on page 33, professional practice on page 35. And again, there are no alarming trends to point out to the board.
Ms. Hurt.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to bring the board's attention to, I guess, the dictation exam and total applications and the overall passage rate from 2021 versus July 2008 and all the years in between to see how we're in my opinion, in a crisis stance right now as far as getting new court reporters to assist consumers, and one of our mission is to protect consumers. And some folks have talked about a shortage, and I should put that in quotes. Others say that there aren't any, but I definitely am concerned about how many people are taking the test and becoming licensed. And we should all talk as an industry about what we're going to do or how we can change these numbers, because they are definitely really concerning.
I would just say that the board, I think, has done a good job of being ahead of that curve as much as they're able to. So we've been looking into the licensing voice writers for a couple of years. You guys have done a good job of exploring license reciprocity with other states and with national. Again, they may not have turned out the way that we had hoped, but we wouldn't know that if we hadn't done all of the legwork to explore the possibility. I do think that this is a resourceful board, and if there are ideas, staff's happy to implement on your behalf.
Ms. Brewer, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, thank you, Chair Sunkees. I just wanted to echo Davina's concerns, and I think these are concerns for so many people in the industry. We have industry-wide practices that have been initiated to try to recruit reporters. We've been losing schools, but furthermore, I think what a lot of reporters lose sight of when they say anecdotally there is or there isn't a shortage is what the huge cohort of reporters who are nearing the age of retirement. So even if personally you feel that perhaps there's been a little ebb in the crazy demand, we are indeed facing a crisis, and we do, for the benefit of the consumers of the state of California, need to figure out ways that we can meet that demand, serve the consumers without dropping the quality of the product that's produced, which is very important because there are plenty of competing sources for lower quality. And our concern is to make sure that the consumer is well served. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for your comments.
And then the final portion of my report is on the business modernization efforts. So as a background for our new board member, the Court Reporters Board currently operates on a legacy system within the Department of Consumer Affairs. And we participated in the groundwork to be part of the next phase of business modernization. But at the point a few years ago, we had to decide if we were going to spend the money to reopen the transcript reimbursement fund or to fund the BizMod process. And of course, the TRF won out. Now we've had a couple of years of cost savings, and that coupled with the transfer from the general fund to the TRF, we're now in a financial position to be able to restart that BizMod process. So we had originally worked with DCA's Office of Information Services to implement online renewal applications so that we could accept credit card payments for the renewals for our licensee population. We were able to get that small piece in place. In the meantime, I've also initiated conversations with OIS to see if that level of online services can be further expanded. So we had a preliminary meeting in December, and the OIS leadership is going to provide me with some high-level options based on market research that they've done. Basically, they'll put us in touch with the vendors that we have. This is going to put, Ollie, will not sugarcoat it, it's going to put an additional burden on staff in the short term. We're so small that when we make that transition, it's going to be a ton of work for each person's individual desk. But I'm proud of staff because they are willing to take it on in order to become a more efficient organization. And I think they see the long-term effects. And does anyone have any questions on BizMod or any other portion of my report.
Ms. Tagade?
Not a question, but I just wanted to to commend Yvonne and the rest of the staff for their work in this business modernization process. I know that it can be incredibly difficult, time consuming. It's a huge upfront investment, but I am so excited for what the new efficiency, what the new databases, information that we'll be able to tap so much more easily, what that will bring forward and enable us to do. So appreciate your work. Thank you.
Ms. Hurd?
I'd like to echo Board Member Tagade's comments about thanking you for plugging through on the business modernization. I know when I was chair many years ago, we were talking and looking forward to the day when we could have credit card payment. And so we're finally there. So many thanks for just continuing to push through. I do have the question with regards to, we've talked a lot about pro rata and what comes through DCA. And I'm wondering, what is the talk in DCA circles about boards getting together and receiving this business modernization through the pro rata services versus individual boards paying, I guess, a separate fee or having to go out on their own? Could you speak a little bit to how much is pro rata and how much is us just kind of being on our own on this?
I muted myself, sorry. I'm sure that a portion of the salaries of OIS would be part of the pro rata just because those services are part of it. When it comes to the particular business modernization for each individual program, that burden lies largely with that particular board because that expense is for that board. At the beginning, they banded a bunch of boards together and they were able to share costs, if you will. I think because they are, I don't want to say several boards, I'm not sure of the exact number, but there are people that have switched vendors since the Breeze program. That was like the initial business modernization, but there have been other boards that have worked with DCA OIS in order to look at vendors. They've made some choices, they've implemented their programs. So the unfortunate thing for us is we had to wait for financial purposes. The benefit we get from that is the other boards have paved our way, if you will. So a lot of the startup costs, and that's probably not the exact right term. I'm sure OIS could give a better presentation on that. But for me, as a layperson going in, there are just certain costs that we won't have to explore from scratch now. So we will get the benefit of other boards and bureaus paving our way a little bit.
Okay. And I guess I should understand that each of the boards have different systems, so there really isn't consistency. So we get to tailor what we need by going out on our own, but have support through DCA when it comes to the modernization.
Yeah, I think that initially it was thought that a program could be built because at the end of the day, each board does licensing and does enforcement. But I think it turned out that each individual board is unique enough that a cookie cutter doesn't quite work. And so there will be some flexibility for us to make it right for our board. It's largely going to be based on what many other boards do, but there will be wrinkles that are particular to the court reporters board. So, and that's why I'm saying that those type of wrinkles or those type of customizations have been done for other boards and bureaus, paving our way for us a little bit.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are any other questions from the board or the public. Otherwise, that would conclude my report.
Thank you for that update, Ms. Fenner. And I would, is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the executive officer report?
This is the moderator. We are now taking public comment on agenda item 5. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box and send it to all participants. Alternately, you may raise your hand. If you are a call-in user, please dial *3. And I see Michelle has her hand raised. Bear with us just a moment and we'll send you a request to unmute your microphone. Please go ahead, Michelle.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a court reporter in California, license 13141. I don't know if this is where I can leave a comment regarding the people that passed the test, but we just haven't had enough people taking the test. Like, imagine all of the high school graduations that exist in California. We haven't even gotten one of those for court reporting.
Oh, hold on just a moment. We're taking comments on agenda item 5. We can ask the board if they wish to revisit agenda item 1, items not on the agenda, and they can entertain it or not.
David, she's referring to the exam information on this agenda item.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay. Thank you, though.
Go ahead, Michelle. My apologies.
Yeah, so regarding that, I'm just trying to figure out how we can get more people even taking it, as far as, I mean, if you count everybody that's passed the test in 1 year, it's still not one high school graduating class. We just need more. And I think invoice writers is the way to go. You know, I don't want digitals coming around. I wish there was more I can do.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Carter.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment?
We have a request from Anna. Bear with us just a moment and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. My name is Ana Fatima Costa, and for Paula, if you're taking the minutes, Fatima is my middle name, so I'm not Ms. Fatima, I'm Ms. Costa, or Ana, for clarity. With regard to exams that are given to candidates who need accommodations, it's been brought to my attention that they must request every time that they apply to take the CSR exam for those accommodations. Unlike the NCRA, which accepts the request for accommodation, and if the candidate must reapply, that information is already in their file. So there isn't the additional stigma of having to reapply if for any reason there are technology issues, which there have been considerable. I am a trainer of court reporting students. I have been doing so since 2008. I have trained hundreds. And I'm wondering if under the DCA or the government department, which I can't remember right now, with regard to overseeing people with disabilities or handicaps, is it possible to have the Court Reporters Board make it as easy as NCRA does? And in addition, because accommodations require additional time for transcription, with the core reporting students that I have trained and continue to, are ProctorU and Real-Time Coach aware of this? And is that a violation of their privacy?
So Unfortunately for us, Anna, we're not sure if a person's accommodation request is for that one particular test or if it's a permanent type of accommodation that they need. Sometimes we have people that have suffered an accident and it's not a permanent restriction, if you will. So that's part of the reason that we just request each time they apply that if they need an accommodation for that test, that's the time that we need to know that. And as far as the information being shared with Proctor U or Real-Time Coach, we would share that they need an accommodation in that they will need additional transcription time because that affects the schedule for the proctor. But we do not say this person needs it because of this reason, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. How about somebody who is blind? That's a permanent condition.
Well, we wouldn't necessarily know that. And so, I mean, I guess the possibility would be if they want to say that this is a permanent condition and anytime they need to reapply, I guess the assumption is they are going to pass the test and it won't be a recurring issue. But sure, we can surely work with people. But right now, the accommodation request has to come in with each application, whether it's a reapplication or a first-time application.
So in other words, the Court Reporters Board does not keep files on candidates when they're applying. Is that right?
And we have files, but we don't go in and start from scratch to see who asked for what and why they needed it at what particular time. Some people don't test every time. We keep the file for historical reasons, but we process each application afresh.
So a person is blind applying to take the exam, and which is already incredible that they're able to apply in the first place and get through school to the point of passing a qualifier. In other words, that is not noted in your files, and that person needs to reapply and provide information again and again and again if it's needed.
I'm sure that we could find out that they were blind, but we don't have a big sticker on the outside of the file saying this person has a permanent disability and will always need some type of accommodation. I feel like it would be presumptuous of us to know what situation she is in. Surely no one is expecting her to regain her sight if it's that type of situation, but it's not incumbent on the board to make those type of decisions. And I'm happy to discuss this further with you about a particular candidate if you like, but I don't think that we're going to do anything that the board is going to need to take a position on or a policy decision on.
Okay, so in other words, you don't require proof of a disability or some kind of doctor's note?
Point of order, Chair. Point of order, Chair.
Ms. Hearn?
During public comments, I don't think we're intended to have back and forth. I think Ms. Finner has suggested that the public speaker meet afterwards to talk in more detail.
Thank you. I appreciate the input. Miss Costa, and actually I want to say I apologize. I'm the one who called you Miss Fatima earlier. I knew that there was another name. I didn't know that. I was thinking they were hyphenated. I apologize. So
no problem.
Thank you.
It was in the minutes too. So
okay. So I would ask that if you have further discussion, that you contact Ms. Fenner after the meeting to take that up with her.
thank you. I just wanted to be clear on what the board's policy is with regard to reapplication and if it's possible to match NCRAs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And that is definitely, I noted that in my notes.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment?
Next up is Carolyn. Hold on just a moment and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone. Carolyn, we've sent you a second request to unmute.
Got it. Thank you. I just had a couple comments also related to the testing results. One was I just have a comment suggestion that the board research or look at allowing online qualifiers, because my understanding is now that most schools are now online, and also to allow out-of-state schools that are online that meet certain requirements to that we allow their qualifiers as well. And that's all. Thank you for everything.
I can address that, Madam Chair. So the qualifiers for the schools that are recognized by California may be online. There's no requirement that they be held in person, but the qualifier must come from a recognized school.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments from the public?
There are no additional requests for public comment at this time. Do you wish to close comments for item 5?
Yes, please. Seeing that there are no further comments, do we have, actually, it looks like someone is reaching for a raise hand button no, okay, all right, just wanted to be sure we didn't have any further comments from the board. We will move to the next agenda item, number 6, legislation. Ms. Fenner, would you like to present this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. I would. Beginning on page 37 of the board agenda packet, you'll find the results of the bills that we tracked last legislative session. You'll note that a number of them are 2-year bills. So at our next meeting, I can report on that with a little bit more detail on where they exactly are, which ones will be going forward and will not be. I also, by the next board meeting, we'll have any new bills that we would be tracking to put forward for board consideration. Typically, we ask if you want to support, remain neutral, or oppose, but there's nothing new to take that action on with this particular group of bills. I do have a few flagged for just to bring to your attention. If you go to on page 37, item 6.3, that was AB 163, the Committee on the Budget. That bill made changes to the reimbursement amounts that the claimants for the TRF can make. So that was a change. SB 177, item 6.4, was the one that granted a transcript increase for official court reporters. So that applies to all court transcripts, whether it's an official reporter taking the proceeding or a freelancer coming in from just private industry. As long as it's a court transcript, those rates apply. The increase is important because it's the first time it's been increased in over 30 years. So I don't know anybody else who's worked so hard for so long without any type of a rate increase. And I'm just going to go through these. If any of the board members have questions, just stop me. The next one that I'm pointing out to you is on page 38, SB SB 170, it's item 610, SB 170 by Senator Skinner. That one provided for $30 million by the Judicial Council to increase the number of court reporters in family and civil law cases. So again, that was another biggie for the industry. And then on item 6.11, SB 241 by Senator Umber, that is our very own firm registration bill. And I see Davina's hands up already. Davina, how long have you worked on this one?
A long time. I have gray hair.
And you did it when we started.
Yes. And I didn't when we started. When you're done with this item, I do have a question on SB 17, Chair.
Let's do it right now. Go ahead.
I was curious about this allocation. It's 30 million. That's a lot of money. And we just saw earlier the numbers with regards to those who are passing and being licensed. And so my question is, if they can't find court reporters to fill the spots that are necessary in family law and civil law, where do they go next? Is this the whole topic of electronic recorders and you know, who's in charge of managing them for the basic integrity and monitoring of the system?
I don't know who wants to handle that, Chair Sunkeys. I think everybody has a strong opinion on this one.
Right. And I was not I know that the Judicial Council had a meeting on Friday. I did not hear how the Judicial Council proposed to. I understand they came up with a formula how to distribute this money to the individual courts. What I was interested in hearing, and to be honest, I do not have the answer to this question, but if the courts don't use that money for hiring court reporters, what happens to that money? Is it use it or lose it to give incentives to the court to hire? However, the problem is, my understanding, at least in San Diego, there are no more applicants. So then what happens? And I will point out that in 2018, the California Supreme Court issued a ruling. Actually, the case came out of San Diego. It's Jameson versus Desta. And it's a ruling that says that indigent parties in civil cases must be provided an official reporter, and I don't have the link. I don't have, oh, actually, I think I do have the language in front of me. Or in quotes, other valid means to create an official verbatim record, quote. So personally, that leaves the door open. I don't know. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say I don't know because I've been working since the 90s as a court reporter, trying to keep electronic recording and digital recording out of the courts. So as somebody mentioned earlier about the licensing of voice writers, I hope that we can, I know that that agenda item is further in the meeting, but I think it's very timely. And then as it was mentioned earlier in the meeting too, that I think Ms. Fenner pointed out that we looked at reciprocity, both with Texas as well as the RPR, NCRA's RPR. And my understanding as far as the RPR goes is we've reached out to NCRA and let them know what the issue is with the test that prohibits us from moving forward. And I'm hopeful that they can, that's not foreclosed forever, that perhaps something can be done that would allow us to move forward with that. Because bottom line is we need to increase the pool of licensees. We absolutely do. Because it doesn't matter, this is fabulous, the legislature gave this money, but if there are not reporters to hire, then well, I don't need to fill in the blank. So it's concerning. The marketplace will adjust. They'll adapt. So I know that probably didn't, did that answer your question? Did you?
I appreciate your take on it for sure. And I see other hands such as Board Member Brewer and Board Member Tagati. I'd like to hear their opinion and then I might have a follow-up. Thank you.
You bet. And I believe Ms. Brewer, you had your hand up first, and then Ms. Tagati.
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. Not having worked as closely on official matters, I would need to defer on details to people who are more intimately familiar with the courts and how they work with hiring and scheduling reporters. But what I do know is that since the reporters have been, I'll just say, released from civil courts for several years, these courts have been covered on kind of an ad hoc basis by freelance reporters and attorneys hiring the reporters. And there are even many officials who have left and formed their own band of freelance reporters who specialize in covering courts. And I know that in Santa Clara County, I won't go into details, but that is not the most efficient way to handle it. And when we have a shortage, not only do we need to work on schools, attracting people to the profession, getting skilled people up, looking at other methods, opening our eyes to other ways to get certified licensees in the state who are skilled and can meet our needs. But we also need to look at how we can most efficiently use the pool of reporters that we have. So this might represent problems shifting the pool of licensees, but I am delighted to see this because I think it's a move in the right direction for more efficiency. I know that I personally I've taken jobs to cover court hearings. You'll have 4 or 5 reporters who are lined up for the same courtroom for hearings from different counsel. That's 4 or 5, or that's where you could have one person covering that courtroom. Anyway, I won't belabor the issue. You probably get my point.
Thank you. Ms. Tagati?
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to echo the concerns around that long-term sustainability of the industry, for public access, that came from the Chair and from Ms. Hurt. A question that I think perhaps we don't have the answer to, but I would just like to, put in the record for follow-up is, Ms. Hurt kind of spoke to that question of the formula for how Judicial Council will be distributing those funds, and I would love to get some follow-up on that formula, and in particular, if there's any if there will be any prioritization of those funds in terms of courts with higher needs, courts with more backlogs, courts with serving a population that needs more access. And so I imagine we don't have the answer to that question, but would love to be able to follow up on that for our next board meeting or at a future date.
Thank you. I will point out that I'll point out a couple things. One, I have to say, in addition to the comments that Ms. Brewer made, the courts created this quasi-official reporter. So when they pulled reporters from civil, in San Diego, that happened in 2012, I think around that time is when different courts were starting to do this. They pulled reporters from civil, they laid off reporters. Those reporters went out and formed firms, court reporting firms, and they were coming in to cover the work. And it's very lucrative because now they're not under the constraints of the court, and now those reporters, they don't want to go back to work for the court. So that the court is created because, well, I won't, they have their reasons. So the court has created this issue where the reporters that we do have in the industry in California, they don't want to go work for the courts. There are 37 courts in the state that are all trying to hire, and they're not getting applicants. So that's the issue, but don't get lost on the fact that what created this situation. And it's further exacerbated by the fact that now courts are pulling from family law in addition to unlimited civil. So that was one issue I wanted to point out. I got so caught up in that I lost my second issue because I'm kind of and so while I try to remember what that second issue was to address your comment, Ms. Tagate, I'm going to go call on Ms. Hurt.
Well, thank you all for your voice on this issue. I think, as Board Member Tagati said, we do need to follow this really closely, and I think we need to raise our opinion and think about the details on this to protect consumers. I have a big question mark about what "or valid" means. That was brought up as far as application of that money. And I think we have an important opinion to lend to the Judicial Council on this topic. So I would like for us to follow this closely and also take it up as a topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurt. I do have a question, Ms. Fenner, on AB 163. You said that the language of the bill changed the amount that a party could apply for. Did I hear that correctly? And if so, what was the change in the amount?
I'll defer the specifics to Ms. Bruning.
Thank you.
Essentially, the pro per limit was increased from $1,500 to $2,500 per case. Additionally, they no longer cap the pro per. They used to be a maximum of $30,000 for all cases per year. Then it was increased to $75,000, and now there's no specific cap on the pro per portion, so they're lumped in with the entire TRF for the fiscal year. Those are the things that come to the top of my head as far as the fees specific to the TRF. I don't think there was anything else.
The trade increase just generally affected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to comment that the other bill that increased what the officials can charge, or excuse me, not the officials, what the charges for court transcripts, that increase does affect the TRF, and that will be paying more for transcript costs. But as we reported, we also have additional funding for the TRF.
Thank you. Did you complete your presentation, Ms. Fenner, on SB 241?
No, we had just kind of started that. So I just wanted to update the board on the fact that clearly that's law now. That part is not new. There are two pieces that have to happen in order for full implementation of that to occur. The first is an update to our databases. So even though we are working toward business modernization, currently we are working in those legacy systems. And so those are a challenge to update. There are limited programmers, they're time consuming. Anytime you fix something that old, it's subject to being broken. But since we knew that's where we would be, we started working with DCA to get the required changes in motion as soon as the bill was passed. Ms. Kale, our licensing analyst, has been working hard with OIS staff to get the necessary updates in place, as well as she's working on developing an application for the firm registration portion. The second piece, so that's well underway, and we expect that to be accomplished by the July 1st deadline given to us by the legislature. The second piece we have is regulatory. So in the next agenda item coming up, one of the regulation packages that we're asking you to approve will set the fee for the registration. It's a tight deadline. We're working diligently with DCA Regulations Council, and we feel that we can meet the July 1st, 2022 implementation deadline that's set out. And I'm happy to answer any questions on implementation of SB 241 or any other questions on anything that I've missed in the legislation portion.
Does any member of the board have a question? Ms. Hurt?
I have one question as it relates to SB 241 and the annual registration fee for different entities. How did we arrive to the $500 amount?
So staff worked through with fiscal staff on an informal desk audit, if you will, how much time is required by which type of staff person. And so we know the cost of the actual staff time, or we've estimated how much staff time by position, who's going to be touching the application, for how long they're going to be touching the application, and then put the costs together from that. The costs actually of processing come out to be slightly more than 500, but the statute caps it at 500.
Okay, so it comes in a little bit more, but we've capped at 500. Okay. I guess my last comment is just to thank Senator Umberg for carrying this bill. We've done firm registration for a very long time, and I'm glad that he was willing to take this on and carry it across the finish line with us. Also want to thank DRA. I think they had a large part in this, as well as CCRA for working with DRA to make this happen.
Thank you. Ms. Brewer?
Thank you for recognizing me. Yes, I would also like to thank Senator Umberg from the bottom of my heart. This has been something that has been fought for long and hard by DRA, and I will also mention my very good friend and tireless advocate, Holly Moose. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment on SB 241, and this has to do with remote appearance. This is the second part of, well, one of the other parts of the bill unrelated to firm registration. I just thought it was important. An important point was that under Section 5, in the board book, it's page 53, about through 2/3 of the way down. It's section 367.75 D as in dog 2A. In part reads, the official reporter or official reporter pro tem shall be personally present in the courtroom. So I just thought that was important to point out. The other thing I wanted to do is I see that Miss Dasher, Carolyn Dasher, has her hand raised, and I would invite her to make a comment.
Moderator, would you please allow Ms. Dasher to be unmuted?
My apologies, I was on mute myself. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to talk about that 30 million for a second, and I would just invite the board to look on the Judicial Council website. There was a report from the January 21 meeting that talks about the methodology and the formula. Basically, it is a done deal. They have created their methodology, and that the funds will revert back to, let me see if I can find it. That will revert back at the end of the fiscal year. So the fiscal year starts in July, and that's that. Part of what counties are doing as they're negotiating their contracts are creating incentives to bring reporters back from the court, as the chair said, laying off people in 2012, which happened up and down the state, and creating a two-tier of reporting in the state where the wealthy people can hire reporters freelance, and the poor people either don't have a record, or as now Jameson versus Dessa allows the record or provides for the record. And so here is money to be spent. So we're hoping maybe we can work together in the legislature if we want to make tweaks to how the money is spent in the future. Right now, they have a methodology for the next year. And if we can show a need, perhaps we can go back to the legislature about how they can spend that money. And then the other thing I did want to make a comment on was, gosh, Chair, what did you just talk about? Oh, the remote appearance in 241. So yes, the remote appearance in 241 section was kind of an offshoot. And although I am happy and I congratulate our state for finally getting firm registration, I've been working on that for many years as well with CCRA. The fact that they put remote reporting within that bill was a hard road to cross, let's say, for the officials, because it added something that was completely different, and yet still court reporter related. So LA currently is negotiating with their courts how to facilitate remote reporting within the confines of CCP 367.75. And I'm sure other counties are going to be doing that as well. And I just think that there'll be more legislation in the future that we all can work on to help make that better for our consumers, our court users, and our court reporters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fenner. Do we have any more comment? I'm sorry, I apologize. Thank you, Ms. Dasher, for that comment. Do we have any other comments from the public on legislation?
Anna Costa is next. Hold on just a moment, please. Anna, we have sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Is it Bui? I don't know how to pronounce your name. With regard to SB 170 and the 30 million Ms. Sunkey's, in her comment and expressing concern, mentioned reciprocity. I have a question and a comment. Does the Court Reporters Board exist entirely from fees, licensing fees from court reporters?
Yes. Well, apart from we just got the transcript reimbursement fund just received the 500,000. That's a one-time grant from the general fund. But apart from that, it's licensing fees.
Thank you. So the 500,000 is specifically allocated for the TRF, is that correct?
Yes.
So if there are no court reporters, there is no board. Is that correct? That's the question. If there are no court reporters, there is no board.
I want to point out, Ms. Costa, that we're not going to do
Okay.
yes, that
I have a comment. With regard to reciprocity, which you brought up, Ms. Sunkeys, I don't understand why the board is not really allowing it, because it's consistently, I've been watching the stats, RPRs pass the CSR at consistently high rates, almost 100%. If there are five pass. This last one from November, there were 4 passed. That's huge. So, and the comment that was made at the last meeting by a member of the board or staff, I forget which, that the RPR does not meet the minimum requirements of the CSR. Well, the CSR is definitely its own animal. It's the only one that's 4 voice in 10 minutes. With a 97.5% degree of accuracy. But if the RPR produces more CSRs, why is the board not allowing? It's not an introductory exam. I've actually heard staff members refer to the CSR as an introductory exam, or I forget the word, but similar meaning. Why are you not allowing RPRs? Reciprocity with RPRs and even higher speeds, RMRs, CRRs, at a much higher speed level than the CSR.
Ms. Costa, we addressed this thoroughly at the last meeting. And so if you have questions about what the decision that was made and why and the result, I would encourage you to go back to the minutes and even possibly the webcast from the last meeting, because we thoroughly discussed this. And I think, and that I truly believe that will answer your question, because we can't get back into the back and forth.
Okay, and I understand. So, and I was present at that meeting. Is that a done deal? It's done. There's no going back to re-examine and discuss it again.
I would suggest that if you go back and refresh your memory, perhaps with what was discussed, that'll answer your question. And as I mentioned in my comments in the beginning, well, I'll just leave it at that. Ms. Fenner, you have your hand raised.
I just wanted to maybe remind Ms. Costa that we are held to a certain standard statutorily. Our test has to be to a certain standard. It's not that the board has set the policy. There's a statute that we have to follow. We have engaged the services of the Office of Professional Examination Services to help us validate other tests, including the RPR. There were deficiencies in the RPR's occupational analysis. It's not a done deal in the sense that if NCRA can cure the deficiency in the occupational analysis, then the board can take another look at it. But we cannot lower standards, if you will, unless we change that statutorily. And I'm happy to talk with Ms. Costa offline in more detail. But that was just a quick reminder for her and for anybody else that's following the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Fenner. Ms. Hurd?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick comment. I just want to remind folks that the board exists to protect California consumers. And today, we are funded greatly by our licensees, and how it will be funded in the future could change based upon the circumstances. And so I think that should be noted and understood. And because we see licensee numbers changing in a different direction doesn't mean that the board won't exist. So again, we're here to protect California consumers, and I believe California would want to do that for the long term, and we'll figure out a way for the board to exist.
Thank you. Did we have any further comment from the public before we move to what I would suggest we take a comfort break at that point when we finish with this agenda item? So any further comment from the public on legislation, agenda item 6?
Cindy Vega is next. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. If I can make a comment for the public consumers about court reporters in court. Am I able to make a comment about that here? Since we spoke about.
If it pertains to legislation, then it's appropriate.
Okay. Ms. Sunkey spoke about, I think it was Ms. Sunkey's or Ms. Brewer, about how there are 4 or 5 court reporters in one courtroom, each to do a 10-minute hearing. That is very inefficient. For the public interest, for the consumers, sometimes you see someone in pro per, they cannot afford the court reporter, they do not get a transcript of a hearing. I go there often. I have sometimes 1, sometimes 2 hearings, and I always feel bad for the person or persons that are in pro per that can't afford me. I would like to say, you can do it I'll report your matter for a fraction of the cost or something. I don't know what the answer is, but I just think it's a disservice to the consumers who can't afford the rate that we have to charge just to go for 10 minutes. Also, same with trials. There are many trials unreported where the person is in pro per and there is no transcript. I think that's also a disservice. I don't know what can be done. I'm just voicing that for the public. Also, for remote reporting in courtrooms, I'm in San Diego County, and as of January 1, I think it's in some legislation that they are not allowing us to report remotely hearings or trials in our San Diego County courts. I don't know if the January 1st date is something they decided or if it's in a bill, but I thought it was later than that. And that is going to affect the amount of reporters reporting in court.
Thank you, Ms. Vega. That was in SB 241, requiring reporters to be in the courtroom, effective January 1 this year.
Thank you for that. I thought so, but I don't know if it can be changed because of the ongoing pandemic and the shortage of in-court court reporters.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment from the public on legislation?
There do not appear to be any additional requests for public comment. Do you want to close the option at the time?
Yes, please. Any further comment from the board before we move to a comfort break? Actually, how about if we take a full 15 minutes? Okay. All right. So we will move to a recess for 15 minutes. We'll be back at 10:55. Well, I want to welcome everyone back. I don't see the board members' faces at the top, and so that's why I'm trying to see if our board members are all back. They are. I'm seeing everyone. So our next agenda item is number 7, and we will begin with agenda item 7.1. Ms. Fenner, where are we with the proposed change to the minimum transcript format standards?
So we like to call them MTFS. Too many syllables. Unless you're a court reporter, it's not fun. At the last meeting, we had presented draft language, and then we got some input from the public with concerns. And so we are back with what we think is language that will solve the concerns that were expressed at the last meeting. So if you look at the proposed language starts on page 43 and carries over to page 44. The actual change that we're proposing is on page 44, and it's the addition of the subsection number 12. I'd be happy to answer any questions by board members or the public.
Are there any members of the board who have any questions or comments on that? I am seeing no hands. Please speak up if I'm missing a hand. I'm trying to trying to see everything.
We have
I'm sorry.
This is the moderator. We have a request from Stephanie. Bear with us just a moment and we'll promote you, send you a request to unmute your microphone.
R12893. I am not up to speed about what this change is about, so I'm afraid that you're going to move on quickly. Can you explain what the change is in the language so we're all on the same page?
So I can take that, Madam Chair. We are requiring that when you produce a transcript that the text shall be offered in a full text search capable electronic format if requested. Meaning only paper copies. If somebody requests electronic, it must be available.
Okay. So I'm a firm owner and we primarily do electronic now, so that would satisfy that requirement, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So it has nothing to do with margins. That's what I was a little confused about. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further comment, excuse me, from members of the public?
At the moment, there are no additional requests for comment.
Thank you.
Would you like to close comments at this time?
Yes, please. Do we have any members of the board that might now have a comment that didn't have one earlier? Any? Further discussion? So how about a motion on this issue? Ms. Hurt.
Chair, I'd like to move a motion on the proposed language with the changes that have been noted on 7.1, minimum transcript format standards.
Is there a second to the motion?
Excuse me, if I could just bump in, I'm sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair. There is actual language that we're recommending if you could use, please. It's on page 42 of the board agenda book. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I apologize, Ms. Hurt.
No, that's okay. It was underneath another. Okay. Yes. Happy to use the specific language. If I could.
I apologize. 41, page 41.
Sure. Okay. I move to approve the proposed regulatory text for section 2473. Direct staff to submit the text to the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at section 2473 as noticed. That is a long motion.
That is a long motion. So do we have a second to that long motion?
Laura second.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. So we have a motion by Ms. Hurt and seconded by Ms. Brewer. Ms. Bruning, would you please take the roll? Call the roll, please.
Would you please open for public comment on the motion?
Yes, thank you. Is there public comment on the motion?
We are open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box, which should have appeared in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send it to all participants. Alternately, you may raise your hand. Dial-in users may dial *3 to raise their hand. Let us take just a moment to see if we receive a request for public comment.
Is it fair to assume that there is no further public comment?
There are no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like to close comments?
Yes, please. Ms. Bruning, would you please take the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Brewer?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Hurt.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Dugade.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7.2, Ms. Fenner, would you please present on this agenda item?
The second regulations package before you today is required to be passed in order to set the fee for the firm registration, application, and renewal. So the proposed language can be found on page 45 of the board agenda packet. You will notice the addition of section G, which sets the fee for the application and renewal, as well as repealing 2 sections. So when we were going through to find the spot to add, we noticed that in 1992, when Business and Professions Code 8041 was repealed, these 2 associated regulations were not repealed at the same time. So they're basically cleanup, streamlining regulations that we no longer need. And Ms. Tugati, did you have a question or comment?
I wanted to note, my understanding is that that $500 amount is set by the legislation, by the language in SB 241.
Not quite. It's not set, it's capped. So we still have to do the justification with our regulations package to show what our actual costs are going to be. And that's why we did the breakdown of which type of staff members will be handling the application or the renewal, the amount of time involved, so that we can actually calculate the cost. Clearly, they're estimates right now, but we do have quite a bit of licensing history, and we know how long it takes to process that. So I feel confident that our estimates are solid.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Ron.
Absolutely.
And if there are no other comments from the board, I would love to make the motion if when at the appropriate time. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I will open it up then to public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to comment on this topic?
We are now open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the words comment into the Q&A box and send it to all participants. Alternately, you can raise your hand. Dial-in users may dial *3 to raise their hand. Let us take about 15 seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Kim has raised her hand. Hold on just a moment. Kim, we've sent you a request to unmute your microphone. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. I'm Kim Kazura, CSR number 8509. SB 241 section 8051 language does not address how a licensed shorthand reporter corporation or a licensed shorthand reporter sole proprietor agency shall be registered with the CRB and be put on the CRB's directory of registered entities. So I would like to respectfully request that the board make it very clear how shorthand reporting corporations and shorthand reporter sole proprietor agencies will be able to register with the board and will be put on the CRB's internet website directory of registered entities that the CRB is required to create for SB 241 section 8051K. To avoid confusion, I think it is important for licensed shorthand reporter corporations and licensed shorthand reporter sole proprietor agencies to be put on the CRB website directory of registered entities because SB 241 section 8051J specifically states that the certificate holder cannot work for an entity or a person unless the entity is registered with the CRB. Thank you.
Yvonne, would you like me to address that question, or Ms. Fenner, would you like to comment first?
If you would like to respond, that would be great.
So my name is Grace Arupa Rodriguez. I'm filling in for Regulations Council currently. Appreciate the comment and the observation. As currently drafted, the language unfortunately is not as clear as broad. So we are actively working on modifying this SB 241 to clarify that it includes all business types and entities, so including your sole proprietor piece. So that's why this amendment itself specifically is focusing solely on the fees, and your concerns will be addressed very shortly.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment from members of the public?
Seeing no request for comment, would you like to close the feature?
Yes, please.
Madam Chair, if it's the board's pleasure, I would point out that this time the language for the motion is on page 42.
Thank you. And if there is no further discussion, I believe Ms. Tagade has a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move to approve the proposed regulatory text for amendment to Section 2450 and repeal of Section 2464. Direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at Section 2450 and the proposed repeal of 2464 as noticed. Thank you.
Wow, another long motion. So we have a motion made by Ms. Tagade, a long motion made by Ms. Tagade. Is there a second?
Yvonne has something.
Yeah, I see. Yes, Ms. Fenner, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I am sorry for oversight. The repeal of the second section 2463 was found after that motion was worded or phrased. So if Ms. Tagade wouldn't mind amending that, so where the repeal refers to 2464, it would be 2463 and 2464. I apologize.
Oh, thank you for that clarification, and I would love to amend that motion. Thank you. So it would be the proposed repeal of sections 2463 and 2464. Excuse me.
Thank you. And Ms. Brewer? I see your hand raised.
Laura seconds with the amendment.
Thank you. So we have a motion that has been made by Ms. Tagade, amended and made, amended and moved. And Ms. Brewer has seconded that motion. Ms. Bruning, and I apologize, this is a request for clarification. Do we now have to go to open to public comment before we come back to the vote, correct? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, thank you. And are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the motion before the board?
We are now open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box and send it to all participants. Alternately, you may raise your hand. For call-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. Let us take about 15 seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, would you like to close comments?
Yes, please. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Hurt.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Tagade.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkis.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 8, which is licensure of voice writers before us. Ms. Fenner, will you start off our discussion?
Thank you, Chair Sunkis. At the last board meeting, the board members had asked me to contact legislative staff to get the ball rolling again on the licensure of voice writers. I was able to meet with staff from Senate Business Professions and Economic Development, as well as the Assembly Business and Professions committees, to bring them up to speed on the issue and to answer any questions that they had. Additionally, Chair Sunkis and I were able to meet with representatives of SEIU to answer questions that they had. At this point, we have offered to conduct an industry-wide or for all stakeholders town hall, if you will. But right now the ball is in the legislature's court, so we're waiting further direction from them. The item is informational only, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Brewer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yvonne, my question is, any idea on the timeline when we might hear back from the legislature?
No, I usually reach out to them every couple of weeks just to see if they have any additional information they can offer, or to see if we can do anything to help, because we certainly would be able to set up any type of stakeholder meeting that they would want to. So we're just waiting for our turn in their busy agenda.
Ms. Hurt, I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm curious, Ms. Finner, if you could speak to some of the questions or concerns today that you had with, I guess, SEIU or others that you've spoken to about licensure of voice writers.
Okay, I will say that I don't remember where the questions came from, who had which question, so I'm not attributing it to any particular individual or group because I don't remember that. I apologize. But mostly people were wondering, why is this coming to the forefront now? What's driving it? And clearly, the declining numbers in the schools, as well as the potential shortage in the actual field, are driving our interest in making sure there's a robust workforce going forward. I was able to let them know the difference in training. They had questions on why there's such a disparity between the time in training a voice writer versus a steno reporter. So I explained that steno reporters learn shorthand. It's a foreign language, and they translate from that foreign language back into English and vice versa. Where a voice writer is learning a lot of the same skills, but they're doing it in English. And so that they don't have the new language requirement to learn. So that considerably shortens their training time, as well as gives them a higher percentage rate or a higher chance at passing eventually through the program. Another question that they had was whether the board anticipated having a separate license for the voice writer versus the steno writer. Other states that license multiple types do not differentiate. And when the board was established in 1951, there were both pen writers and machine shorthand writers, and there was one license. Based on that historical fact, I said that the board in the past has been in favor of having just one license. You're either licensed to produce the transcript or not. But there's still a concern on the part of the legislature that people should be tested in whatever method they're going to be using to practice. And so clearly the board would be willing to go down that route if that is the pleasure of the legislature. That can be done. It's a little bit messier, but obviously it can be done. Those are the ones that come to the top of my mind right now.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment?
We are open for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box and send it to all participants. Alternately, you may raise your hand and you will be called on in the order that you were received. Call-in users may dial *3 to raise their hand. First request is Athena. Bear with us one moment and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone. Athena, we have sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Athena Ponce, CSR number 14010. I'm an official court reporter at the Sacramento County Superior Court, as well as current president of the Sacramento Official Court Reporters Association, also known as SACRA. We object to the licensure of voice writers. We do not believe there is a shortage of court reporters, and we echo the sentiments that Ms. Dasher shared at a previous meeting that are listed on page 12 in the material. There are a lot of official reporters that have quit or retired to pursue their career in the freelance arena because of the higher wages. Newly licensed, younger reporters aren't interested in committing to a full-time officialship position. We're curious how this philosophy of licensing voice writers is going to mitigate the shortage of official reporters, since a majority of the reporters are flocking to the freelance arena. We believe that if more courts are willing to offer part-time pro tem positions and or allow retired annuitants to cover court hearings, then that will fill the shortage of reporters in some courthouses that are experience the shortage. I will inform the board that SACRA, as recently as last week, has formed a recruitment task force to recruit new hires and form a student outreach committee. Yesterday, we contacted via email all the court reporting schools in California to get the statistics for currently enrolled students and newly enrolled students that are beginning their program. We received a response back from Tri-Community College's Court Reporter Program Coordinator, Shannon, and she informed us that they currently have 100 enrolled students, which is 35 students higher than when she took over the program 3 years ago. And they have 20 new students starting their program next week. SACRA realizes that court reporting is an extremely undermarketed profession. So our recruitment task force is currently in the process of formulating a plan to reach out to high school students by creating flyers and sending them out to all California high school career centers to market our profession. Hopefully we can get those out within the next month. Also, I will remind the board that some, if not most, California students do not attend court reporting schools in California. There are numerous online court reporting programs that are offered in various states, and when those students graduate, they qualify to take this California state exam after obtaining their RPR. And according to the CRB's November 2021 dictation exam statistics, there was a 67% pass rate for RPRs that took the state exam. And that's all I have for comment. Thank you.
Next, I believe we have Michelle. Hold on just one moment, please. Michelle, we have sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Michelle Carter, CSR 13141. I 200% disagree with what the last reporter said. There is a shortage. Despite how many people are passing, I mean, if you look at it, what is it, like 17 court reporters a year? That's ridiculous. I mean, we've got to get like 300 reporters a year passing the CSR to put a dent in this. Yvonne, what you commented earlier about having one license, I think that's a great idea. And in explaining to them how it works, I think, when people ask me, it might take 3 years, it might take 6 years to get out of stenographic school. I explain to people, it's like, hey, it's like learning a piano. You don't just learn how to play like Alicia Keys or Stevie Wonder overnight. Like, some of them never even get to that point. So I am not in favor of digitals, but I believe that if you can pass our exam, you can be a court reporter, regardless if it's voice writer or stenographic, as long as you can pass our test. And I'm positively sure that no digital can pass our exam.
Okay, next we have Carolyn. Bear with us just a moment. Carolyn, we've sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. I know it's shocking that I talk so much. Anyhow, so it was refreshing to hear the new president of Sacramento, and I do appreciate her comments. Another thing I just want to say that the reason why I brought up earlier the out-of-state schools and allowing their, and I guess figuring out how we can register them. Mark Kislenberry's school, currently those students get out in a year and a half. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. That's something I learned last week. And just one recommendation I have, that I recommend that the board formulate some kind of PR and informational information for current licensees if you would like to get momentum on the voice writer issue. I personally know there's not a shortage of court reporters today. However, I do realize by licensee numbers that as people retire, and if we don't have the backfill, that we may see that. But right now, because of the 2012 situation with the courts and all the freelancers who don't want to get out of their pajamas and come to court, we don't have enough official court reporters. And that's all. Thank you.
Next is Stephanie. Bear with us just a moment and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, please.
Great. My name is Stephanie. I'm a court reporter here in San Diego, official reporter in North County. I'm also an instructor at a school here in San Diego that teaches Kisling-Berry's theory. We started a class in September of 2020 with 24 students. It's now nearly 18 months later, and we only have 3 in high speed. So even with the Kisling-Berry theory that is graduating students much, much faster than traditional, we're still not graduating enough students. So I couldn't disagree more with the fact that people are saying there's no shortage. My original comment I wanted to talk to the difference in licenses. If we make a differentiation between a voice writer and a steno writer, I believe a lot of the concern I've heard is that it will lower salaries. It just opens the door for employers to hire people with a different license designation at a different rate. And I'm wondering if there's been any discussion on that.
I can say it's one of the things that we've discussed with the legislature, but we're awaiting their pleasure. I believe they're in discussions.
Next, we have Anna Costa. Hold on just a moment, please. We will send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Regarding voice writing and a little bit more of a framework, there are many reporters who believe that voice writers are no different from digital recording personnel. And that is not correct. Voice writing, there are many reporters who are voice writers, and they were previously steno writers. Tori Pittman, for example, whom the board invited to give a demonstration back in 2019, I was president down in Southern California, was for 20 years a steno writer and then transferred to voice when she had multiple carpal tunnels. So she explained that we all speak English at about 140 words a minute. So voice writers actually begin at about 140 words a minute. And they do create briefs, just like steno writers. And there's a very specific language. They are repeating words and phrases and speaker IDs and grammar, punctuation, formatting as they are repeating the words they hear. Steno writers learn the shorthand language from 0 words a minute. So that's a huge difference. So reporters who believe that voice writers, there must be something they're doing to be able to get out of school faster, it's because they start at about 140 words a minute. And I'm looking at an email from the Court Reporters Board back in February 14th, 2019. It was a news release stating coming soon to California, voice writing. And I remember a survey being sent out to which I responded asking for stakeholders' opinions about offering voice writing or exams to voice writers. And I remember Ms. Fenner stated that 2/3 were opposed. And the board went ahead and voted to allow voice writers to sit for the exam in March before legislative approval. So there's a very big difference between digital and voice. And I encourage court reporters to educate themselves. I like
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. I like Carolyn's suggestion that the board offer more information about voice to educate the court reporters. Thank you.
Next, we have a request from Linda. Bear with us just a moment, and we will send you a request to unmute your microphone. All right, Linda, we've sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Linda Lawson. I've been a court reporting teacher, steno, for over 40 years. So I've seen a lot of very well-educated, mature people come to the program, and I'm sorry to say most of them drop out. We do have a new class starting this fall of approximately 20 new students. Many of them are mature, well-educated, would love to become court reporters, and I think could do an excellent job. But their chances, based on statistics of the past, are that maybe 2 out of those 20 will make it to the high speed. Personally, I am in awe of steno writers. I know Laura Brewer's writing and so many other court reporters. But I've also seen over the last 12 years that I've been investigating voice writing that computer processing power has increased incredibly. The speech recognition engine has developed amazingly. I've been teaching a voice writing class for about a year. I have seen a few students pass qualifiers in less than a year. One person in about 6 months. Not everybody can do it. It's not simple. It's quite a skill. But I do think it's going to help meet the need for the court reporter in a very good way. Their real time is amazing. Dragon loves big words. The big words come up. Every now and then it'll have trouble with littler words, but it's excellent. I do think it's the answer to meeting the digital recording influx. I think that's all I'll say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe I misclicked Kim. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. I believe you are next. Kim, I have sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
I didn't have my hand up, so I don't know why that happened. It's not
Okay.
showing on my end that my hand is up.
Name appeared. Oh, my apologies. Let's move on. And next, we have an additional request for comment from Michelle Carter. Give me just a moment, please.
Hi, that's Michelle Carter again. I'm sorry I missed some things, but I just did notice on the court reporters testing, when you go to the statistics, it seems like 1/3 or half of those people are out of state. I don't know if they take our exam with thinking they're going to move out here or if they're just going to be remote. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure how that helps us. So it appears that what is actually in California and not out of state, there's actually less than we think there are. And then as to someone else's comment about getting paid less, have you looked into the other states that there's no difference in pay? There's still plenty of work. It's still hard for states with both licenses to cover jobs. This is easily searchable. There's plenty of work out there, and they're actually getting paid what they want to be paid, and it's the same rate as a stenograph reporter. In fact, I am licensed in California. However, I just moved to Texas myself, which I'll be taking the exam next month. So you'll be getting a letter from me with a change of address. And I have a small agency, and half of my reporters are like they're all moving. We're all moving. We're all remote. So I don't know how that's going to help the field, because hey, I've got reporters in that moved prior to the pandemic. They actually moved out of state, and some that moved during the pandemic. And because they kept their license current in California, are still able to work. But if things even go back to in person, I don't know how that helps, because none of us that moved are coming back to work anywhere in California in person. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
And next we have a request from Stephanie. Give us just a moment, please. Stephanie, we've sent you. Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify my earlier statement. I am pro voice writers. After doing a ton of research and interviewing several of them, and even hosting a presentation by Tori Pittman, I believe that they do need to have the same high salaries that we enjoy. After a presentation by the Texas Court Reporters Association, I understand that they are not full members, but she admitted they have zero disparity in income. I think if we are to license voice writers here in California, if they can pass our CSR exam, then they need to have the same pay. They're doing the same job essentially with their voice that we're doing with the writer, the steno machine. So I am for equal pay. My concern is that given the opportunity, somebody might see a different set of initials and want to pay them a lower rate. Oh, you use your voice instead of a steno machine. Maybe we don't have to pay you as much, because there is a lot of confusion between the voice writers equipment and the digitals. And so that's why I had asked if that had been thoroughly vetted, because I don't want to license voice writers and have them affect our income at all. And that's the most common objection I'm hearing from my colleagues. Thank you.
And that appears to be all the requests for comment. Would you like to close public comments at this time?
Yes, please.
Excuse me, this is Tony. I wanted to make a comment, but I don't think I did it the right way.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. And I thought I was not going to say anything today. To put it in perspective, I started reporting in the 80s or early 80s, and I did pro tem work in court. And I can remember having conversations with some of the reporters there. And at that time, there were pen writers in court. And some of them, there were several machine writers there that started out as pen writers and then migrated to the machine. And during that whole process, basically the same conversation arose that we were having now, how the pen writers thought the machine writers would not be as good as the pen writers. And, we know how that went. Also, I remember in the 80s when the computers came on scene for court reporters for the transcription of transcripts. I can remember one of the negative comments about the computers was, well, when a lot of the reporters did not think the computers could do the job. I mean, as far as providing the quality of transcripts. And I'm only saying this part about the computers versus the old traditional way of dictating is because we're all human beings, and anytime there's a big switch or a big impact on what you do, there's that it raises that kind of reaction. It's human nature to be not, to be worried about what's going on here and how that's going to impact me. Also, too, when back to the pen and when the machine writers came on board, both, of course, took the CSR tests. Both, if they passed, would have a CSR license. There was never any designation on the CSR license whether you were a pen writer reporter or you were a machine reporter. I also, with my work with NCRA, I was able to meet a lot of reporters throughout the country. And number one, voice writers want to make exactly the same money that machine writers make. And they're capable of doing it, and they're capable of producing a good transcript. I think that, again, human nature coming into effect, it's always fear of the unknown. But if you were to really get to know pen writers, really look into how they prepare, to me, as long as they can pass the same test as on using voice writing as candidates using machine writers, then they're equally equipped. And I think because there is a shortage, I could be working either a court depot every minute of the day if I had that capability to do. So the demand is so high. So I strongly support the licensing of voice writers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Excuse me. Now I will move back to the board to see if there's any further comment from the board members before we move on to our next agenda item. And I do want to say, I thank all the members of the public who commented. We're all very interested in this topic, and we want to gather all the information that everyone has to offer. So we really appreciate all the comments that were made, and we'll take everyone's comments into consideration in moving forward. Ms. Hurt.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to highlight the comments that we just heard from Tony O'Neill. I think it's really important, and I want to emphasize that change is coming in many different ways, and we should try to get ahead of it by thinking about this and talking and discussing. the different ways that we can make sure we have a record that is true to form. And we know, like, people wait in line for the latest iPhone. We know technology is going to play a part in that future. And I think licensure of the voice writers is just another evolution in this process of getting the record down. And actually, voice writers have been around forever. They've been around for a long time and doing a good job. And so just to ensure that the record is made well and there's some oversight by this board, I think benefits the consumer. And again, Tony's comment about, I think I did like a chair newsletter some time ago about reality perception and technology in the record, and just commented, at one point, we had boats and then we had steam engines, and, this is going to evolve. What's the next technology we're going to use to write down the record? So I hope people keep an open mind, and I thank everybody for their comments, and I look forward to figuring out how we adapt and licensure and ensure the record is the one that it should be, which is right and fair and honest and unbiased. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tagada, you had your hand raised next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to uplift, and I apologize that I did not note where the comment came from, but I did note a comment from the public about the potential that 2 licenses designating steno and voice writers could lead to a stratification in pay or in rates. And I wanted to uplift that not only as an issue for the reporters themselves, but as a threat to the long-term sustainability of the industry, and what a critical role that element plays in public access. And so, to the degree that we can avoid that unintended consequence of such a change, I would urge us as a board to make sure that consideration is central as we move forward with a potential solution.
Thank you. Ms. Brewer.
Thank you for recognizing me. And I really appreciate Ms. Tagada's comments. It's interesting to hear about how important pay and being able to attract quality people to the profession is in benefiting the consumer. But I would also remind the people giving public input that pay isn't our primary consideration. Remember that our primary consideration is what benefits the consumer. So pay only insofar as it affects the consumer really is appropriate as a concern for us. So I noted as I was listening to everybody, I made a note to myself, and change is hard. Change is hard. Change is scary. My husband likes to say only a wet baby likes change. And I like to think into the future. People tend to miscalculate how long it's going to take for change to happen, when it's going to happen, all that kind of thing. And the way that I look at it is, do I think that in 50 years or even in 15 years, this job is going to be done the same way? No, not a chance. And I think that trying to fight progress is a mistake. That said, sacrifices and lesser than are not the answers. As one of our commenters, Linda Lawson, said, the voice engines have had phenomenal improvements. I have seen this firsthand in my own work, and I think probably most of us have. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this issue. Our concerns obviously are meeting the needs of the consumer, providing enough qualified licensees, and supporting an environment that encourages that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. see. I think we'll just move on to the next agenda item. Since we just got, it's been less than an hour since we had a break. So I think we'll move into, unless I hear an objection from our board members, we'll move into the next agenda item, which is number 9, which is sunset review. We are, Miss Fenner, sorry. I believe
Thank-
you, yeah.
Thank you,
I
Chair
believe-
Sunkis.
You bet, go for it.
We have yet to receive the questionnaire from the legislature on preparing the sunset review report, but we know it's coming. The board doesn't meet very frequently, so staff just wanted to put this on everybody's radar so there's plenty of time to develop a robust report for the legislature's review later in the year. Just backing up timing wise, the board sunsets in January of 2024, which means we need a bill in 2023 to extend that date, which means usually November, December of this year, 2022, would be when the sunset reports would be due for the hearings in the spring next year for the bill language to be developed. While much of the report is statistical in nature and it's supplied by board staff, the actual report is the work of the board. So the board's going to include things like what they've accomplished since the last sunset review, as well as identifying areas of new concern for either the board or the industry. Staff's recommendation is that a sunset review task force is created to work with staff on the draft that will be presented for full approval or approval by the full board. And the only reason I'm not saying that not everybody's interested, but since we meet infrequently, it gives us the chance to move the project forward in between meetings and then bring it back for polish, if you will, with the full board. And just process wise, typically we hold a stakeholders meeting with that task force that meets so that we can get any concerns or input from the industry or the public as well. I would like to point out to the board that the sunset review process is really an opportunity for us to ask the legislature for any statutory changes that we need to help us move our strategic plan forward. Any non-controversial changes are typically included in that legislation, just because it gives us an author, it gives us a vehicle that's already in place. Are there any questions about the process or about the report itself? If there are no questions, then I would recommend that a task force be appointed.
Did we want a point of clarification? Do we need to open it up to public comment before we move to the task force appointment?
I'm all in favor of public comment. I mean, it's not really an action item, but if somebody has something to say, we always want to hear it.
Absolutely. Okay. So I would go to public comment. Does any member of the public have a comment on the preparation for the sunset review process?
We have opened up for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box, which should have appeared in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send that comment to all participants. Alternately, you can raise your hand by dialing *3 if you are a call-in user, or hitting the hand on your device. Let us take about 15 seconds to see if we receive requests for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, would you like to close comments at this time?
Yes, please. And I will turn to the board. Members of the board, anybody have any comment before we address the issue of a task force? I am seeing no hands. It sounds like obviously we're going to be needing a task force to work with staff in preparing the sunset review report, which will be submitted to the full board before submission to the legislature. Do I have volunteers? Oh, I see Ms. Hertz's hand raised.
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. I was just going to raise my hand and say I've been through one sunset review and I'm happy to lend support in the task force with another board member to get this done.
Well, conveniently, Ms. Tagade has her hand raised as well. So let's see what she has to say.
Yes, I would just, I know I'm still very new in this process and with some support from some of our more seasoned board members, I would love to participate on that task force. Thank you.
That's fabulous. I think that we will be well represented with by you two ladies. And of course, the rest of the board, we'll all be working on this. So as well as staff, absolutely. And we certainly look forward to sharing with the legislature the progress that the board has made. So thank you very much to both of you for volunteering to take that on. And we will move to agenda item 10, strategic plan. Ms. Fenner, may we have an update on the strategic plan?
Sure. On page 64, you'll find the usual updated action plan that was put together from the original strategic goals. We always put it before the board for if there are questions or if there is any type of priority they would like to see us give any of the outstanding items. Does anyone have any comments on the action plan?
Ms. Brewer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Yvonne, you addressed this. I was wondering if this has any prioritization or what our previous priorities have been. Are we talking, as we set priorities, are we talking about reevaluating the priority? That's my question. Thank you.
So this was put together, the strategic plan was 2019 through 2023. So this was put together very early on in the process, as soon as we actually finalized and the board approved the overall strategic plan. We worked with solid staff from DCA to break it down into smaller steps. And it was a guess or an estimate at the time of when we would have staff time and resources to accomplish each of these goals. Clearly, what's happened in the last, since 2019 has been what no one has expected. And so I am not making any excuses, but what we had thought would happen in 2019 is not what has happened to date. But we always want to put it before the board in case, even though we have put something on hold, if it is something the board feels is really imperative that we do sooner rather than later, then we want to know about it so that we have time to put some staff and resources to getting it accomplished.
If there are no further comments from the board, I'm going to move to Ms. Brewer, your hand. Did you have a further comment?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I would like to say one of my longtime goals and something that I think does benefit the consumers of the state is if we have some very pressing issues, and so I don't know whether this will be able to rise to something that we can give some good time to, but to investigate real-time captioning standards and assess industry practices for consumer protection. I would love to see us do that, and it addresses accessibility, which is ever so important and becoming more and more important, especially with everybody being remote. Everybody and their brother wants captioning in their Zoom or WebEx or Teams or whatever. And so there is more and more captioning out there, and there are more and more people who are being impacted by that. And we don't have any entry requirements or licensure or anything in the state of California. I mean, theoretically, well, the market controls it. Theoretically, anybody could hang their shingle out and do it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
And I would just say thank you for letting us know that that's a concern or an interest, and we will weave that into our workload.
And with that, I'm going to move to public comment. Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on the strategic plan, agenda item number 10?
We have opened for public comment on item number 10. If you would like to make a comment, please type the word comment into the Q&A box, which should have appeared in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send that comment to all participants. Alternately, you may raise your hand. Call-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. Let us take about 15 seconds to see if we have requests for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, would you like to close comments at this time?
Yes, please. So unless any members of the board have further comment on the strategic plan, I will move to the next agenda item, which is 11, which is future meeting dates. We have tentative dates of April and August of 2022, and per our usual custom, staff will poll board members offline about their availability for dates. Are there any public comments on this topic?
We are now taking public comments on future meeting dates. Please type the word comment into the Q&A box, which should have appeared in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and send it to all participants. Alternately, you may raise your hand. Call-in users, please dial *3 to raise your hand. Let us take about 15 seconds to see if we receive a request for public comment. Seeing no requests for public comment, would you like to close comments at this time?
Yes, please. Are there any members of the board that have a comment regarding future dates? Okay, that will move us to agenda item 12. The board will now go into closed session to conduct the annual review of its executive officer. We will be adjourning from closed session with nothing to report back out to the public. I thank the public for attending and appreciate everyone's input. Board members will be given instructions, I hope by our moderator, because I certainly don't have the instructions. And I am going to suggest we take a 5-minute break. Will 5 minutes be enough before we launch into the closed session? Or does somebody want longer than that? Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think it was a very productive meeting today. Appreciate everyone's participation and attendance.
Thank you, everyone. I will be in touch shortly. Take care. Bye-bye.
So while we're wrapping up, I do need a couple minutes. So I'm going to log off for just a couple minutes and then I'll be right back on.